Chris Sewall here, baseball card collector, investor, dealer, in that order. Welcome everyone. Story time today from the files of Adventures in Card Dealing. This is the story of a purchase I made out of Tucson, Arizona a few weeks ago. And I decided when I make these large purchases, I'm going to break them up into two videos. One shortly after the purchase where I review, the story of the buy itself, how much I paid, and sort of what I'm predicting, I'm predicting I'll do on the collection. And then I'll do a follow-up video a few months down the road after I've sold through everything, where we can look at all the financials and discuss, exactly how I did and how close was it to my prediction. So this here is part one. We're going to go over the deal itself, the story of the deal itself, how much I paid, and what I'm expecting to get out of it. So it started when a few months ago I received an email from Jean, who's a viewer of the channel, and he said that he was in a Facebook group with somebody who had posted that he was selling his father's massive collection, and it included these photos here. And I went back and forth with Jean a bit, and he passed me on the information of the seller, whose name was Alex. So I had a phone call with Alex. We actually had a number of calls, and we had a long text exchange going back and forth about stuff. And he had inherited the collection from his dad, who had died maybe 10 or 15 years earlier. And he had, hauled it around to a couple different, homes at this point. He was just sort of ready to get rid of it. And Alex was not a card guy. He knew a little bit about, from what his dad had taught him. And he was a sports fan, so he knew some of the basics. But he didn't know much about the card industry. His first thought was to sort of try to sell it himself. But, after learning a little bit of the ropes, he decided that was just going to be way too much work. So he was looking to sell it all in one shot. And he was, kind of shopping it around. Quantity-wise, the collection was massive. Rough estimate, 400,000 cards. The majority of it was football. I'd say 80% was football, with the rest being mainly baseball and a little bit of basketball. The binders you see on the left were mainly vintage football sets or partial sets. And there was a couple other boxes of vintage, but the majority of it was 80s, 90s, junk wax era stuff, and it did get into the early, mid-2000s. Now, I was not the first person that Alex was discussing about buying the collection. He had spoken to Heritage Auctions about them coming out and buying it and auctioning off stuff. And at one point, Chasing Cardboard was actually scheduled to go out there and look at it and do an episode on buying the collection, but that ultimately didn't work out with their schedule. So Alex and I started discussing the logistics of me possibly coming out and looking at the collection. So from my perspective, there's a lot to consider before buying committing to come out to look at a collection like this. I'm on the East Coast. He's in Tucson, Arizona. So there's going to be a lot of upfront travel costs, a flight, hotels, a car rental, and in this case, a U-Haul rental. Plus, if I end up buying the collection, there's going to be a lot of shipping costs associated with that. So I, need to make sure up front that the price is going to be something worthwhile, and also that the inventory is going to be worthwhile. I've been in front of many collections of this quantity, which were basically worthless. Just a whole bunch of 80s, 90s junk wax era cards that are impossible to resell. And, based on the initial specs of what I understood about the collection, the vast majority of it was 80s, 90s. And so I needed to sort of make sure that there was enough value out there for me to come out. I explained all this to Alex, and he was extremely easy to work with and, very understanding of all this. I told him to look out for some specific cards based on the way the collection was organized to see if there's, some decent guaranteed value, we'll say. And yeah, he found some decent stuff. He found a Tom Brady Bowman rookie. He found a Jim Brown rookie, 1958 tops. And also fairly important was that some of the football binders were, the vintage football binders were in fact complete sets. Like this is a 1971 tops football complete set. And that's important because it, again, sort of guarantees some initial value. So based on that and the fact that Alex came across as extremely reasonable, like he didn't have any unrealistic expectations for the collection, we decided it'd be worth it for me to come out and check it out. I said I thought I could probably get through the entire thing in about a full day, although might need two. So we blocked out a 2-day window starting on a Monday. Now, Alex was hoping to get sort of a price estimate up front, and I told him that was going to be extremely difficult without seeing it in person. But I gave him a very, very loose guess range of, I'd probably end up paying him somewhere between $7,500 and $15,000 based on everything I knew about the collection at that time. It could very well be outside that range as well. But that was sort of my best guess. But what was most important to him was that he didn't get like completely ripped off. Like there wasn't a whole bunch of hidden value, and it was a six-figure collection, and someone was going to swoop in and pay him 10 grand type of thing. And I of course guarantee that I wasn't going to do anything like that. So I fly into Tucson on a Sunday night. I get up bright and early Monday morning, go pick up the U-Haul, and drive over to Alex's house Monday morning. I think I got to his house around like 8 a.m. Alex lets me in. His wife is there as well, and both of them are extremely pleasant and easy to talk to and very, very friendly. As are their 4 dogs who sort of took a liking to me, I was sort of proud to say. But yeah, all the, getting to know you chit chat and pleasantries and discussions we had was all very, very nice. So I start going through the cards, and I'm going, one box at a time, and I'm flying through. And it's actually a pretty easy collection to assess, given its size. The cards are very, very well organized, but you can tell that the original buyer was not really looking to buy high dollar stuff. He was looking for bulk. He enjoyed the bulk. He enjoyed the process of sorting cards. He enjoyed just having a lot of cards, so he could always have something new to do, and build sets and put cards in order or whatever he felt like doing. And this is something I totally understand. That's something I really like to do too, is just put on a game and sort cards for hours. But yeah, the collection was sorted that way, and in that case, it made it very easy to fly through. The majority of the boxes had basically no value, which also is basically just junk wax era base cards, so it could sort of be put to the side, not something that I had to spend any time on. So I was able to go quite quickly, and ultimately got through the entire collection in just one day. I kept extensive notes as to what I could pay for things as I was going through the collection, and as I was sorting it, I put things into categories, which I'll explain a little bit more in just a bit here. But there was some nice stuff throughout the collection. It was mainly in the vintage. The modern really didn't have a whole lot of note. There were a few nice scattered items here and there, but it was really the vintage that made up the bulk of the value. There was, like I mentioned, some complete and partial sets, football vintage sets from the 60s and 70s, even a couple from the late 50s. There were some boxes of sort of loose singles, vintage football singles. They were sorted by year and brand, and they had some stars scattered throughout. They didn't really have like the big cards, but there were stars scattered throughout, and these were generally sort of mid-grade cards. Like I said, the complete sets, had the key cards, of course, Terry Bradshaw rookie as an example here, and there were some other nice singles scattered throughout. Here's like a Jerry Rice rookie, a Walter Payton rookie, a Griffey Upper Deck rookie, an Aaron Rodgers Topps Chrome rookie, some other nice cards. The card in the upper left is one of the better vintage modern cards in the collection. 97 Pinnacle Inscriptions John Elway autograph. And then there was this one, random valuable modern card. This is a 2004 Finest Gold Refractor Sean Taylor rookie. It's numbered out of 150. It's actually a card that a lot of people might overlook, but this card it's uncirculated, never been opened out of the case. Is about a $500 card. So this was the best modern card in the collection, other than the Tom Brady Bowman rookie. So when I arrived, the cards were positioned in the house like this, and by the time I got through them at the end of the day, they were positioned like this. And what I had done was I had gone through each box and put them into piles based on category, and that would make it easier to explain what I could pay for things and why. This category here, or this pile here, were the cards that essentially had no value. These were mainly junk wax era cards, getting into the 90s base cards, but boxes where I really can't pay anything for them because it's just not going to be. I'm not going to be able to get anything out of them. I actually offered to leave this pile behind and would have preferred that. And, he probably could have posted that on Facebook Marketplace and gotten a few $100s for the entire thing or something, but he preferred not to deal with it. So I ended up taking this, but this pile here, I couldn't pay anything for. This pile here was the modern stuff that didn't have much value, but it wasn't zero. Like, I can pay something for these. You open up a box and it's mostly worthless stuff, but maybe there'd be a small stack of inserts in the back that had a little bit of value. So this was a pile I made and ultimately offered something like $25 a box, somewhere in that range. I can't remember exactly, but roughly that for this pile here. This category here was modern complete sets. There were some factory sealed sets and even some unopened wax here, so I just sort of put that all into one category. This category included the Tom Brady rookie that I showed earlier, as there was a 2000 Bowman football complete set. This deck here was 1970s, and it ran the entire decade, 70 to 79, again, mainly football. And it didn't have any of the key cards, like the Peyton and the Bradshaw. Those were all part of the complete sets, which is a different category. But it did have stars scattered throughout, and it was sort of like mid-grade on average. And these smaller piles up front are the best stuff. There was like a 60s pile, there was a 50s pile, there was a modern best stuff pile, and then there was the binders, which aren't in this photo. But yeah, the binders of the vintage football sets and partial sets. So here was the breakdown of my offer, and this was the exact sheet that I actually showed them when I made the offer. For the modern sets, I've offered $1,700. For the 70s bulk pile, $1,300. For the 60s bulk, $1,300. The 50s bulk, $2,000. The modern bulk, those were that huge stack of boxes that I said was like $25 a box or whatever it was, $1,600 for that. The vintage football sets, $3,850. That was the most valuable category of cards here. And then there was a box of, I put any like notable modern cards into as a sort of one box, and $600 for that box. So add that all up, and my offer for the entire collection was $12,350. They were very happy with that offer, and they accepted, and yeah, I paid them, and we shook hands, and everything was great. We loaded up the U-Haul, which took quite a while, got some help from his nephew, which I really appreciate, and everything was good to go. I promised that if there was some super valuable item or items that I missed along the way and I discover them, when I'm at home, I'll of course reach out and let them know and kick them some extra money if that was the case. But I also said that was sort of unlikely to be the case based on what I had seen with the collection. I want to take a quick second to say thank you to Alex and his wife for having me into your home that day. It was a really fun day, and you guys were great hosts, and the 4 dogs. Everyone was a great host, and they actually bought me lunch in the middle of the day. Got me like a local hot dog, and I'm not really a hot dog guy, but that was one really good hot dog. So yeah, just a really fun day going through cards all day. That's what I want to be doing with my life. So I really appreciate them letting me come out, look at the collection, and ultimately buy it. The picture that Alex is holding up here is one we found in one of the boxes as we were going through the collection. It's a photo of Alex's dad on the right in the photo here. In the middle is former Raider wide receiver Dokie Williams, who also signed the photo. But yeah, on the right is Alex's dad, who is the original owner of this collection and the person who put the collection together. Very cool. So after finishing the deal Monday night, I drove back to my hotel room and loaded all the cards up into my hotel room, which took quite a while, as you can imagine, a whole bunch of trips. But I spent basically all Tuesday going through the collection and condensing it down into cards that I wanted to ship back home, because I was going to ship everything. I was not going to drive it. It was going to be more efficient to ship. So I condensed it down into a more reasonable, quantity for shipping purposes. And here's just a few photos of the inside of my hotel room as I'm working. I shipped the cards out Wednesday morning. I flew out Wednesday afternoon, and the cards, arrived maybe 10 days later or so. No issues there. So here's what the deal looks like as of now and what I anticipate will happen. As I mentioned, I spent $12,350 on the collection itself. Had a bunch of travel costs. Flight, hotel, and U-Haul was, close to, approaching $2,000. Had over $1,200 in shipping, and then some other small expenses, a couple Uber rides and things like that I associated with the deal. Total spent on the deal is $15,325. As I mentioned, this was actually a fairly easy collection to assess, given how large it was. I'm very confident in basically, almost all the items in terms of what they're going to sell for within a very small window. There aren't a lot of unknowns, it's not a lot of high grade vintage that we're going to grade, and we don't know what the grades are going to be. There'll be some cards to grade from the vintage, but it's mainly mid-grade stuff, and it won't have a dramatic impact on things. And, same within the modern. It's not like there was a bunch of really, really rare modern cards that I'm not familiar with, and I have no idea what they're worth, and I'm just guessing. And on top of that, there's no ultra modern, so there's no cards of players who could get injured tomorrow, their card values plummet, or they have a killer week and their card values go way up. So with all that, like I said, I'm very confident within a pretty small range what basically everything in this collection will ultimately sell for. I'm estimating that I'll take in about $25,000 from this collection. That's after all fees are accounted for, seller fees, PSA fees, things like that. Now, it's obviously just a best guess, but I would be surprised if it's way off from that. I mean, if it's a little bit lower, a little bit higher, sure. But yeah, 25,000 is my best guess. Maybe that's a tad conservative, but it's not going to be a whole lot more, a whole lot less than that, unless I just really, really miss something. If it does sell for 25,000 exactly, then that would give me a profit of just short of 10 grand. Not a home run, but a solid deal that I'm happy to do. And I'll estimate it's going to take me about 15 full work days to sell through this collection. That's not like 15 straight work days. That's like 15 work days worth of work spread out over a number of months. And I already put in 3 full work days on the travel, and so I'm giving myself 12 more, roughly 2.5 more weeks. So estimating 15 work days there. But that's it. Thank you everyone for watching, and thank you again to Alex and his family. And like I said, I'll do a follow-up video to this in a few months, looking at the exact financials, and we can see if there are any surprises or how close I was to my prediction. And hope to see all of you for that one as well. But really appreciate it, and see you all again next time. Thanks everyone.